It's quite a happy moment to share the screen with chairperson of the session today, Professor Anand Mahanan, and plenary speaker, Dr. Dipa Chakrabarti Madam. Mahanan sir has been my teacher at EFLU during PGCT and DT program, and he has also written a foreword for one of my books. And I'm lucky enough to be associated with Madam Dipa Chakrabarti. I'm grateful to the organizers who gave me this opportunity to introduce this plenary session speaker. Dr. Dipa Chakrabarti is head School of Languages at Amity University, Rajasthan, Jaipur since July 2010. Before joining Amity, she has worked at various institutions like Ramakrishna Mission Institute of Culture, Calcutta, Alliance Francaise, Calcutta, and Calcutta University. She is a holder of master's degree in French from University of Rouen, France. She has obtained her doctorate in arts from Jadavpur University, Calcutta on Francophone African literature. She also holds an MPhil in modern history from University of Calcutta. Her publications include a book in French, Rupture et Repas, entre la France et l'autre, and an edited book of Bangla translation of the novel by Mari D titled Nichons des Fantômes, and various book chapters and articles in English and French on Saint John Perse, La Rochefoucauld, religious extremism in the Sahel, French spelling reforms, etc. She has also been a frequent visitor to the Research Center for African Studies, Science for Bordeaux University, France, and many other universities. Thank you very much, Dr. Rakawat, for giving me this opportunity to introduce Madam Dipa Chakrabarti. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Professor Chakrabarti, please.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, over to you.
I would like to share my presentation.
Yeah, ma'am, you can share. You are co-host. You can share it. No issues, ma'am. Just have to click on share screen.
Share screen.
Yeah, I have clicked on it already.
So have you minimized your presentation? Is your presentation open, ma'am?
My presentation is on my, but let me see, I cannot do it. So it is saying all kinds of things. Okay.
There also you have to select and then again share. Press the share button.
Okay, right.
Yeah, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We're able to see.
You can see, right?
Yes, ma'am. You just come over to the first one.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So I will full screen this before I. Okay.
Yes.
Respected Chairperson Professor Anand Mahananji, esteemed Chief Guest Professor Harish Narangji, esteemed dignitaries, members of the organizing committee, and dear colleagues, I wish you all a very good afternoon. I thank warm-heartedly Professor Hemendra Chandalia ji in particular for having me here as a speaker in the 7th Annual International Online Conference of RAS on the theme Plurality is Unity. I shall talk about the indigenous Creole languages of the Caribbean countries in general and Martinican French Creole in particular. Creole language binds the Caribbeans who otherwise belong to different races, geographical spaces, and linguistic zones of the world. I don't know, some problem. Can you see the whole screen or should I? Because you know,
it's visible, absolutely visible.
All of you, okay, fine. I have an impression that it is getting blocked. Is it visible?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am, it's perfectly visible, please.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
In fact, you can see my slide. The heterogeneity of the people in the Caribbean region is due to the political and economic compulsions and challenges that the archipelago had to confront with. These were mainly driven by the needs of the European colonial masters and the lucrative sugarcane plantations that needed a huge labor force. So the infamous triangular trade, exchange of black Africans and goods between the three continents, America, Africa, and Europe, started the successive waves of migration to the archipelago. This was the system of slavery that got formalized by the colonial masters. These people got totally uprooted from their soil and culture and occupied a new space that we call the New World, transforming themselves into new beings altogether. So Caribbean is formed as a result of slave trade, but then there were also migration of the East Indians and the Chinese indentured laborers at a later point of time. So, in order to proceed further, let's have a look at the geographical location of Caribbean. These are island countries located to the east of Central America and Mexico and to the north of South America. The Antilles or West Indies are divided into Greater and Lesser Antilles. All these countries came under the rule of the Europeans during the colonial epoch, and the first point of infiltration was language, through which the cultural appropriation began. So, we find the dominant idioms of the region. So, you can see these are the multiple layers that came into exist in the Caribbean archipelago. So we find the dominant idioms of the region as Spanish, French, English, Dutch. But all these people communicate through creoles. So we have Spanish Creole, we have English Creole, French Creole, and so on and so forth. But none of this got official status excepting in Haiti, the Haitian Creole, and you can see the other one, Papiamento, a Portuguese and Spanish based Creole language in Aruba, Curacao, and Bonaire. Hence, the need was felt and a struggle to assert the Creole identity, culture, and language came into the fore. The ex-slave generation, the Indians, the Chinese population, the presence of Europeans, all this blended together into one and produced the Creole language, which is transcultural, transracial, and thus the birth of a new identity created. But what are these Creole languages? The popular perception is that these are deformed languages formed out of the mixture of European and African languages. But the correct explanation is that these languages are created through a fast-paced structural transformation process, which otherwise would have taken hundreds and thousands of years. The catalyst for this was the meeting of diverse language groups who needed to communicate in a native language. This I already told in the previous slide that the Caribbeans represented the New World as against the other continents with settled systems. So now what was required was theories, and we know literary movements soon started. Intellectual endeavors were not lacking for recognition of the Creole existence of the people. Now, when we talk about Creolity, obviously we talk against another literary movement that formed during the 1930s, that is the Negritude movement. Now, through the writings of the Black Africans settled in Paris at that point, Léopold Sédar Senghor, Léo Gontran-Damas, and the Martinican poet Aimé Césaire, a concept of Black heritage, shared Black heritage, came into being that we call as the Negritude movement. Aimé Césaire, the Martinican poet, talked of the shared Black heritage and cultural, racial, and historical ties to the African continent as a rejection of French colonial, racial, and moral domination. But this monolithic interpretation came to be challenged by another Martinican theorist, Edouard Glissant, in the 1960s. The Caribs represented the New World as against the other, as I already told about this. So Edouard Glissant advanced now the concept of antinality or Caribbeanness, while claiming the Caribbean identity could not be described solely in terms of the African descent. He proposed rather a rhizomatic entity that could not be described solely in terms of African descent. The entire heritage of the archipelago, according to him, was to be taken into account to talk of the West Indians, the creolized population. Subsequently, the creolity movement took its birth, and we would now talk of the worthy leaders of this movement, Raphaël Confiant, Patrick Chamoiseau, and Jean Barnabé, who built the Creole language and institutionally formalized it. Now, this slide is very important because through this seminal essay and manifesto by all these three Creole fathers, Éloge de la Créolité, or in English we call it In Praise of Creoleness, through which the Creolists proclaimed formally the Creole nature of the identity, the multiple Creole identity of the Martinicans, while still opposing the domination of France and French language in the region. Now, these are, you have Raphaël Confiant. His photo is also there. He was born in Martinique in 1951 and was an activist for the Creole cause. Now, along with Jean Barnabé and Patrick Chamoiseau, he wrote the manifesto and created the movement of Creolity. A prolific writer who wrote in Creole and French and have 30 novels to his credit. According to him, Creole is the indigenous culture of the Martinique in which he was born, a culture that belonged to the people of Martinique, irrespective of their racial background. And in order that culture thrives, it is necessary that Creole language becomes a living language. Next slide shows Jean Barnabé, whose contribution to the Creole language was enormous. Through his publications and linguistic endeavors, he formalized the language and gave it a better base. Patrick Chamoiseau, a very important name, who actually returned to Martinique after Edouard Glissant, his friend and mentor, told him to take a close look at the Creole culture. Now, most of the writings of these Creole authors is interestingly a mix of both the Creole and the French idioms. And many of them started their career, for example, Raphael Confiant. He started his career by writing only in Creole language in order to give it a firmer base. Now, I will come to the challenges that this Creole language actually has, and all the Creolist leaders are facing right now. Now, what are these challenges? First is the inferiorization of Creole language as against the major language, that is French. There was of passage of oral language to written language, and many found while writing that the vocabulary or the lexicon, the Creole lexicon, was extremely limited in nature. And the most importantly, the lack of protection by the state. But having said so, it needs to be told that Creole languages have a long written tradition, particularly the French Creoles. Now, you can see there were several publications dating back to early 19th century and even before. There were reworkings of the fables by the famous French poet La Fontaine, literary ethnographies, all written in Creole language. You have several 20th century texts. And also, what is important, 20th century has been extremely, enriching for the Creolists because of their multifarious productions in the literary field. And you can see Raphael Confiant's name in that list. Now, this Creole literature remained a male-dominated area, nevertheless, for a long time. Recently, however, the domain changed with the coming of many of the women writers, and you can find a few of them. Now, coming to Martinican French Creole, which got its derivation, or which is derived not from the standard French, that is the French of Paris. Rather, it got derived from the 17th century French dialect known as Francian. So in the last 30 years, as I was mentioning, remarkable progress have been made to institutionalize and to develop the Martinican Creole. The first was recognition of the spelling systems and of the Creole language. University degree has been introduced in Creole studies. There was certification for teaching Creole for teachers called CAPES. Several schools have been established or have been asked to teach Creole to the young students. Oral examination at the high school also has been instituted since 2000. Now we have also TV channels broadcasting news in ATV and RFO. So we can see a very major contribution towards formalizing and institutionalizing the Martinican French Creole. However, the problem remains, and the founder fathers of the Creole movement, called Creolite movement, are extremely apprehensive of the survival of this language. Now, the Martinican French Creole, will it perish or survive? Now, this is largely because of lack of state support. Although they are trying their best, they are not getting enough support from the political leaders. They are trying to publish as much as possible in Creole in order to revive it. And they fear and they are apprehensive that their own writings, some of them, as I have mentioned here, like Texaco, which is the winner of the Goncourt Prize for Literature, has a peculiar Creole climate because lot of this vocabulary is a mixture of Creole and French, and people, if it disappears from the scenario of Martinique, then these writings will be totally wasted. Now, I would like to also, if possible, I would like to share a video clip of Raphael Confiant, who is struggling, and as he promises that till his death he would not allow Creole, Martinican Creole, to perish. So first I will conclude, and if time remains, then I would love to share his video clip. So in conclusion, efforts are there to protect the language through publication, through new Creole novels, and they are being produced right now. Manuel Norva is a very big name in it and recently published his novel that got several appreciation from abroad and in-house. Now the oralitude charge on Creole can also be brushed aside, as most of the languages that start as a minor language has its oral phase, and gradually they evolve into major languages, and English and French languages are no exception to it. However, political will be necessary, and the state leadership has to play a role and give a voice to the indigenous language of the region. So, madam, if possible, sir, if possible, I would like to share a clip by Raphael Confiant. So I think I have to stop share and then do it. Do I have time to do so? I cannot hear anyone.
Hello. Madam, how long is the clip? I mean, if it is just 2-3 minutes, we can. Yeah, sure. By all means, please go on.
Thank you. But the voice will be audible, or is there any mechanism in order to make the voice audible?
Well, for that we will have to go to Dr. Rajshri. She will better be able to tell. Yeah, Dr. Rajshri.
Start off with the video.
Okay.
It will automatically get adjusted. Just start off. Just share the video.
Yeah, I know, but how do I go to my desktop? Right. I don't think I'll be able to do it.
Just close down this thing.
Yeah, I will just stop this. But how do I do that? So I'm writing share, but it is coming. This one is coming. So stop share.
Stop share.
Right. And then how do I share the audio?
Then again go for share screen.
I did.
Right.
Yeah.
The window will open up where the video is. I mean, you have to get into that window where your video is, and just click it.
Right.
If it's on the desktop, you'll find it on the desktop.
Yeah, but I cannot find my desktop. That is the biggest issue. See, this is where is the desktop? No, I'm handicapped totally.
And far apart, everyone is equally so.
So what should I do? You can see the screen. How do I go to my desktop?
You
Yeah,
stop
Rashmi
sharing.
can guide.
Hello, Dr. Rashri.
I cannot do it. I can send it to Dr. Manoj if she can do it. I don't know.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am, you can send it to me. I'll try.
Okay, right. Um, I'm finding it a problem. So I think it's okay. Um, should I have?
Uh,
Can I do
uh,
that? It's
uh,
okay. It's
all
actually.
right. All right, madam, we can keep it towards the end of this session. In the meanwhile, once these technicalities are sorted out, we can have the chair address. And then on, if you deem it fit, we can play it.
Devendra sir, we can help out, ma'am. If you can just give me 1 or 2 minutes.
Okay, then go on. By all means,
Uh-huh.
we still have time enough.
Uh-huh.
And
So,
yeah, go
Dr.
on, please.
Manoj, can you help, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am. Deepa, ma'am, good afternoon. I'm
Very
Dr. V. George. Ma'am,
Yeah.
what you got to do is, first thing is, on this particular screen of Zoom, you find the minimize screen, right?
If I share screen first, right?
No,
No.
you need to minimize this first.
The Zoom.
The
The
Zoom.
Zoom, yeah, the Zoom window, you need to minimize
Yeah,
that.
that I minimized.
And now you need to select the video or the audio which you need to play. Can you find that on the desktop or the folder where you have saved it?
The problem is, I think whenever I'm minimizing, the whole, the presentation is coming.
Okay, so you need to close the presentation as well, ma'am. You need to either present,
Minimize that also.
press the escape button or the close button.
Okay. If I close it, then it is there. Uh, yeah. So now I share the screen.
Yes, ma'am. Now, when you share the screen, that particular window would open where the audio has been saved or the window that you've opened.
Yeah, I know, but the problem is this is not coming. I cannot go to the desktop. That is the handicap I am facing.
Okay.
Okay,
Uh,
what I'm going to do is I'll be sending it to Dr. Manoj.
Yeah, that would
Because,
be great.
that yeah, we can have it that way. It would
okay,
be
thank
more
you. Thank
convenient
you.
later. This video can be played on video audio can be played on towards the end of this session.
Okay, okay, thank
Uh, uh, okay, thank you so much, Professor Chakrabarti, for such a wonderful presentation covering the global dimension of plurality in general and the linguistic self-determination, which is so important along with political self-determination in the face of the hegemonizing and homogenizing colonial monopoly in particular. And your clarity, your elegance, it was an additional rewarding factor for us all. And I'm sure everyone involved has benefited immensely from it. So thankful to you. Now, moving on, we will have Professor Anand for his address. Professor Anand, are you there with us? Hello?
Yes, he's there. Yes, he's
Okay. A warm welcome to Professor Anand. Before we get across to him, just a few words about him. Dr. Anand is head of the Department of Materials Development, Testing and Evaluation at IFLU Hyderabad. His research interest ranges very widely across literature and language interface, English for specific purposes, and most importantly, folk and tribal literature. He has guided research and published extensively. He has edited many books and many journals and translated folk tales on a wide scale. And besides all this, very interestingly, he is the executive editor of Lok Ratna, an international online journal devoted to the language literature, folklore, and pedagogy. So in every way, what I feel is he's the fittest person, in fact, to talk about plurality and the issue of unity. Given the kind of multiplicity and diversity that is inherent to our own country. So without any ado, now over to you, Dr. Anand, for your address, please.
Thank you for this opportunity. I would like to congratulate the organizers for organizing such a meaningful and enriching event. It's a matter of pride and privilege for me to chair this session. And it was great experience to listen to Professor Dipa Chakrabarti. I learned a lot from her presentation. Language is not only the means of communication, but it is also an instrument that shapes our identity. It is through language we express and assert our identity. Mother tongue, and motherland are dear to everyone. Like language, literature is not merely a mirror of society, it also reflects society. It reflects society, but it also reconstructs identity and society. Take the example of our Indian English fiction. The early fiction writers like Rajarao, Mulkraj Anand, R.K. Narayan used literary devices to assert Indianness. They adopted indigenous way of storytelling to make Indian English fiction different from that of the British fiction writing. They stressed on locality, community, and identity. The locality is found in Rajarao's Kanthapura and R.K. Narayan's Malgudi. They represent a microcosm of our country with its variety, with its varied culture and traditions. Even the African writers like Amos Totowala, Chinu Achebe, Gugi wa Thiong'o adopted the indigenous form of storytelling to assert their place. The presentation we just had now also explored such issues. Professor Chakrabarti has brilliantly presented the multicultural aspects of Creole language, how many languages have contributed to the making of Creole language, and how writers and activists have contributed to its growth and development. I congratulate her and thank her for this enriching presentation. It was very insightful and informative. And like a true teacher, she showed us visuals depicting the background and history of the language and the people. I particularly learned a lot from her presentation, and I would like to thank her and the organizers for this opportunity.